Welcome back to the High School Sports Zone as we welcome in Vite Media Chief Content Officer Matt Malatesta. Great to see you again.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. So the state semifinals taking place this week. Greater Houston well represented. Let's talk about some of those teams. 5A Division I, Shadow Creek Sharks into the state semis, 29-1 in their 2 seasons.
Like, what did they do for an encore, really? Because they've never lost a regular season game, which is amazing. Kudos to Brad Butler over there. But these guys are loaded. They do it on defense. They're fun to watch, and they look like they're having fun playing football.
So happy to see in 5A Division II, Fort Bend Marshall, the Buffs. What a win last week over Manville, which was undefeated. And they're back. They make it back to the state semifinals. Great job by Coach Williams over there.
That was a statement, right? Because they lost to them in the regular season, and they punched them in the mouth the last weekend. Now Fort Bend Marshall is one of those teams you can't prepare for because they're so fast. They're like elite track stars on a football field. You can't practice that during the week.
6A Division I, Greater Houston well represented both by a Region 3 champion and a Region 2 champion. We had the Westfield game on Saturday, but what about the Mustangs getting to the state semis for the first time since 2015?
One of the most unheralded teams in Houston. You know, you think of Katy and North Shore, but you never really put Westfield in that group. They're a tremendous program. Matt Meekins does a great job, and those guys run through a wall for him.
Yeah, we'll get to 6A Division I champion from Region 3 in a second, but in Division II, Cinderella story, James Taylor Mustangs.
You gotta love that.
5-5 in the regular season, and they advance to the state semis.
Remarkable. Again, they do it on defense. Chad Simmons came from Cinco, gets over to Katy Taylor, brings an entire new culture, and man, it's really working.
Last week on our live Thursday night showdown, Saturday afternoon playoff edition, we had North Shore versus Atascocita. North Shore quarterback Demetrius Davis, one of the greatest performances I've seen in a playoff or even regular season game. That was incredible.
You have to kind of date back to what Vince Young did years ago in the Astrodome against North Shore. But they're not doing anything super dynamic. He's just dynamic. They're running him virtually 20 times a game. And last year he didn't really run the ball that much. This year he's had to because they've had some receivers hurt. Tremendous game by him.
And you had a great story in Vipe. Love that article you had about Demetrius. He's always been the guy out in East Houston.
What's really cool, I got to spend a lot of time talking to his dad. And he kind of told me his progression from Little League. They basically had said, hey, you really can't play in this Little League in Humble because you're too good. So he moves on to kind of the select Little League where him and Zach Evans and Shadrack Banks played against each other because he said, Matt, here's the team. We always ran into the Dallas Lions, who is full of Duncanville kids. So they knew kind of what they had.
That's a great story.
What they had early, like in 6th grade, that these North Shore guys were going to play the Duncanville guys deep in the playoffs. And what a game last year. He said, last year was no big deal. That Hail Mary, they used to have triple overtime games and huge plays all the time in Little League. That was just another chapter of what Demetrius and his crew used to do with the Duncanville.
All right, great story. Big week next week off the field. National Signing Day, the early signing. They started that last year. And one team that's sending a lot of players to the college ranks big time is Shadow Creek.
Well, no wonder they're 28-1, right, in 2 seasons. They've got Triplett. He's the defensive lineman. Ronald Triplett. He's going to Kansas State. They got a linebacker going to Kansas State. Xavier Alford, the tremendous cornerback, who's never really played this year because he's been injured. He's at the University of Texas. Of course, you got the beast, Alec Bryant, who was committed to LSU. He's going to make his decision here shortly. But that's the team that really had the boatload of D1 kids this season.
All right. Any suspense? Any players that we're anxiously awaiting? Where are they going? I guess the big one is Zach Evans.
Well, you got Zach Evans and you got Alec Bryant. Those 2 guys. Don't forget about Dwight McLaughlin. He's tremendous talent at Klein Oak. Joshua Eaton at MacArthur has not made his decision yet either. So those guys are probably the 4 or 5 guys that are still leaving everybody in suspense.
And they don't have to decide by next Wednesday because this is the early signing. You also have the first Wednesday in February. So we had a great season, Thursday night showdown, live games, and appreciate you joining us all season long. We'll have an awards banquet next month. But thanks to Matt Malatesta, Vite Media.